Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Banking has become a much tougher business over the last 5 years. The crash of 2008 left many mid-sized institutions reeling, especially those with heavy exposure to the housing market. It's also led to a new round of consolidation in the industry, including locally, where Bank Rhode Island, which grew out of the old Shawmut Bank, was bought last year by Brookline Bancorp of Massachusetts. But executives say out-of-state ownership hasn't changed BankRI, which now has 18 branches, more than 60 ATMs, and plans to keep expanding. This week on Executive Suite, from Bank Rhode Island, President and CEO Mark Meiklejohn and Senior Vice President of Retail Banking Steven Parente. Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Mark, Steven, thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you being here. I know you have those money printers in the basement, right? That's where you print all the money
Absolutely.
at the bank. So I mentioned off the top that people around love to talk about what things used to be and where things were. BankRI partly grows out of the old Shawmut Bank, right? Where are the roots of this bank?
Sure. Around 1995, as a result of the Fleet Shawmut merger, Bank Rhode Island was formed as a de novo. And we started as a 12-branch network. It was the divested branches related to that merger. Mm-hmm. It was the Shawmut branches that were based in Rhode Island.
And then more recently, I mentioned that the acquisition by Brookline Bancorp of Massachusetts, you're now a division of them down here. But I know it's very important, and I remember talking to your spokespeople all through the sale, that we're still Rhode Island Bank, we're not changing our names, you're not going to see a different thing outside. Explain to me what the impact has been on there, and if customers would notice in any way.
Sure, and there's been very little impact to our customers. In fact, I think many of our customers are probably even unaware that the transaction took place. It was effective January 1st of 2012, and Bank Rhode Island is a wholly owned bank. We are part of a family of 3 banks, part of the Brookline Bancorp family of banks, along with Brookline Bank and First Ipswich Bank, obviously located in Ipswich, Massachusetts.
Makes sense.
So we continue as a Rhode Island bank. We are headquartered in Providence. We have our own charter and our own board of directors, so we really operate somewhat independently. It's, I think, a little bit difficult for people to understand that because they're so used to a consolidating industry and seeing a lot of names change on banks.
Sure, yeah.
As a result
recently.
As a result of the consolidation. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And do you think, in your experience, Steven, are decisions still made locally the way they used to be? Does it feel similar inside the bank?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anything's really changed, and we haven't skipped a beat as far as customer impact. I mean, we went through a large system conversion to get all of our back office operations on the same platform, and it had zero customer impact. Their checks look the same, their account numbers the same, so nothing changed. And the people that they're dealing with within the bank haven't changed either. So for us, it's been, just a kind of transition, an opportunity to kind of streamline our operations across a larger institution at the Bancorp level. But for us, it's been the same thing day to day, and I think it has been for our customers. And as you can see, with our new Johnston location, the name still remains. So that's our new logo, that's our new look, and it still says BankRI.
And are there benefits, do you think, Mark, for Bank Rhode Island to be part of a larger organization that you wouldn't have had when you were independent and on your own?
Yeah, I think, I know we're going to talk about regulation a little bit later on in the show, but it's getting difficult for smaller banks to absorb the additional requirements and the additional costs associated with regulation. So I think to the extent that you can spread those costs over a larger base, I think that's a good thing. I think the thing that we need to keep in mind is, even though we are part of a larger institution, it's about a $5.5 billion organization. It is still a regional.
It's not J.P. Morgan.
It's not a J.P. Morgan or one of the super mega banks, national banks.
And that's kind of an interesting point you make, because you hear so much talk, too big to fail, people railing against the mega banks, the really big ones. Yet it sounds like, from your view at the top perch in a bank here, regulations have kind of pushed toward banks getting bigger. It's easier to be bigger.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think one of the unfortunate circumstances of Dodd-Frank is that
Dodd-Frank, the financial regulatory overhaul law?
Yes, that was really targeted at the very largest banks in the country. And unfortunately, it was sort of a one-size-all-fits solution for those institutions. It's trickled down now to a lot of the smaller banks, the regionals and community banks. And I think we're all grappling with how to deal with that and the impact that that has on our customers. And I think that'll play itself out over the next few years.
Yeah, we may not really recognize the impact, for a couple of years with some of these regulatory components going in. And I think for our customers, what's important is that we kind of manage what the regulation says, but at the same time, giving them the most favorable opportunities, but also decreasing the impacts around the regulation as well, so we can continue to do business the way we've been doing business.
Yeah, because just for people at home who may not follow banking news in and out, Dodd-Frank, a very sweeping bill Congress passed in 2010, huge number of new rules and changes to capital requirements and all these different things, as you said, was really targeted at what had gone wrong in the biggest banks, but it sounds like it's impacting you a lot. You're dealing with it a lot right down here at the Bank Rhode Island level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a brave new world in the banking industry. I think everybody recognizes that. I think the regulators are still working their way through that a little bit, as are all of the participating banks and really everybody in the industry. And as I said, I think this will play itself out over the next few years. And I think some of these regulations will start to they'll start to find the right high watermark where they're affecting the right size banks in the right way. But it's going to take some time.
Let me ask you, for Bank Rhode Island specifically, I mean, how would you describe the health of the bank today, the stability and the strength of the bank? That was a big concern people had after 2008. How do you feel today at Bank Rhode Island?
Yeah, I feel I've never felt better about the bank. By banking standards, we are a relatively young institution. But I think we've never been better positioned within the marketplace. We've never been stronger. We bring the capital of the larger institution and our own capital and the combined capital with Brookline. But we really think that we avoided a lot of the pitfalls and a lot of the things that took place in 2008, 2009, and really have lingered through the last couple of years. So I think it was a time for us to actually increase our business, increase our market share. We tried to present a very consistent and focused approach to the market, and I think our customers appreciated that.
And Steve, tell me a little about the expansion. I was talking to one of your spokespeople, and they were saying, you have branches you relocated, you're building new ones, you have more ahead. What's sort of the expansion plans right now?
Well, I mean, I think the fortunate thing for us being in Rhode Island is it's a small state, so your expansion doesn't need to involve 100 locations. However, there are certainly some pockets in the state that we're not in, and we know that there's some great opportunity in those areas, both from the households that are there as well as some of the businesses. Our most recent branch that's going to be breaking ground pretty soon down in South County in Wakefield, that's a territory that we've actually been doing business in for a little while, just a little bit more remotely. This gives us an opportunity to service those customers a little bit deeper, but at the same time service that community. The expansion for us has been kind of a long plan over the last 3 or 4 years, kind of identifying.
And I think we're taking a look here at the new Wakefield branch that's in progress now, right?
That is, that's a rendering of the branch. It's going to be a little bit different, 2 stories for us, actually. First and second floor with some offices upstairs, but the branch will be on the main floor. And we're excited to be down on Main Street in Wakefield. It's kind of revitalized down there. We're happy to be part of it and kind of grow with the community itself. And like I said, we have a business down there. We can't wait to get down there. It's been very well received. And we have other areas in the state that we think there's opportunity to expand, because we think we are delivering something, to the community and to the Rhode Islanders, and especially the Rhode Island businesses, that is very favorable right now. So we're excited about that expansion.
And we're coming up to take a break, but when do you cut the ribbon on that new branch?
Well, if I had my way, tomorrow. However, probably looking right around April 1st.
All right, so we'll look for the shovels will be out, and we'll have the ribbon cutting there. Stick with us in Executive Suite. We're going to talk more about why having bank branches still matters in this age of online banking. Stick with us. We'll be back. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and my guests this week are Mark Meiklejohn. He's the president and CEO of Bank Rhode Island, and Steven Parente, the bank's senior vice president and director of retail banking. Can you fit all that on a business card, Steven?
It's not easy. The short logo helps.
The short logo, that's why you need to keep it tight like we have it here. So I mentioned before the break, but I've been fascinated with this. I've talked to banking folks a few times on this show, and no matter how much we're told we're in a digital age and everything's going online, everyone says branches still matter. We just talked about your expansion. It looks like you agree with that. Why does it still matter to have branches? Can't you do everything digitally now?
Well, you can just about do everything digitally, and I think to a certain extent, you can only get so far in a community or in a town without having a physical location digitally, because it doesn't serve the whole population. And at the end of the day, truly, I mean, it's okay to go in and start doing things digitally. However, if they have a question, if they have a need, if it's something about their finances, their money, they want to talk to somebody because there is a face across the table and it's a trust component. You know, the banking industry needs to be trusted for people to continue to do business with them. And in order to do that, you got to know that person, you got to have a relationship with them. So I think, you know, to your point, Ted, everybody says, oh, we can go digital, we can do, but it doesn't stop anybody from building branches, because within that community, you got to be part of the community if you want to build those relationships. And people do like to go where their money is, or where they perceive their money is. So we'll continue to grow where we see fit, and I think a lot of the other banks our size will do the same thing because it's calling for it.
Do you think there's anything generational in that? Do you see any difference? I don't know if you look at how, you know, your younger banking customers versus your older ones, but I know, you know, as a millennial, I do so much of it online, but I do need to go to the ATM sometimes. I don't know, but I know my grandmother still loves to go in and talk to the teller. Is that an impact at all?
Well, I think what grows a bank is new accounts. And I would imagine when you open those accounts, Ted, you probably went to a location.
I did.
And I think that's the point.
With my dad.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, a lot of people will transition to the electronic mediums. You need to have those, obviously, to service them. However, when you start to build that relationship, or there are secondary needs like home lending, you need a mortgage or a home equity line of credit, you're opening up a business, you're going to want to go in and meet someone who's going to possibly help you. And I think that's what you need to have there. And again, you can only go so far digitally as far as acquisition. You can maintain and you can service them digitally, but you can't acquire them digitally very easily, or not as easily as having, you know, that face-to-face interaction.
And Mark, how do you view you know, your job's kind of pilot big-time strategy for BankRI? I mean, could you imagine BankRI? Are we going to see BankRIs in Nebraska someday, or, you know, all across Rhode Island to a much greater degree?
I'm not sure the name would play real well in Nebraska.
I don't know what people think. How
I'm not sure they know where it is.
Maybe Aruba. If we could get a branch out in Aruba, that wouldn't be too bad.
Exactly. But how do you think about that? How big to get? You know, you saw some banks in the crisis we were talking about, it got way too big for their britches, often gobbling up other banks. You guys are taking a more methodical approach. How do you think about that?
Well, you know, we are still a relatively small bank. We've got a long way to go. So we've got a lot of growth that we can achieve here in Rhode Island before we need to think about, you know, crossing the borders. We do business with companies in Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we are not limited to Rhode Island in terms of doing business. But there's lots of opportunities for growth here. You heard Steve talk about some new markets that we'd like to get into. South County is certainly one of those, and there are others that I think over the coming years, you know, you'll start to see us move into a little bit. You know, what's important for us is organic growth and profitable growth. So if we can grow organically, adding good customers, adding them one at a time, whether they're retail customers or business customers, that's what's important to us. And continuing to service the market and build those relationships that Steve talked about. That's the most important thing. From a strategic standpoint, you know, I think, you know, we are part of the Brookline family, so I think that's probably something we'd look at more at a corporate level.
Sure.
But for us, it's organic growth, and it's one step at a time.
And Steve, I can't give you a whole commercial, but very briefly, what's the pitch your people are making about why they should switch from maybe one of the bigger banks to you guys, or a smaller bank up to you guys?
Well, I mean, I think part of that is partly need. You know, there's nothing to say that one of the larger banks doesn't serve the need that they particularly have. I think what we focused on, even from the inception of the bank and even more so now, is we build a relationship, and that's what it's all about. And whether you're walking in once a week to cash your check, and you're a 19-year-old, or you have, you know, greater multi-million-dollar needs from your business perspective, you're going to build a relationship with someone in our bank, and you're going to maintain that relationship, and you're going to be seen as a vital part to us being profitable and having growth. So I think that's what we focus on: delivery of service. And delivery of services. We want to be able to provide what you need when you need it, but also, again, that relationship that you can pick up the phone at any time, you can walk in and someone's going to service you and help you and treat you the way you really feel that you need to be treated, and get to that, you know, one-time contact resolution. You know, it's all about the service. And I think if you're looking to switch and that's what you're looking for, and I think a lot of that has, you know, transitioned over the last 5 or 6 years as far as that, you know, we're a great alternative. You know, we'll never be as convenient as some of the other banks. So if your needs are much broader than Rhode Island and New England, you know, it might not work for you. But if you're like most Rhode Islanders who like to stay in Rhode Island, and you know, Mark was born here, I was born here, we still live here like many Rhode Islanders, you know, that's what we're going to provide to you: a very high level, high touch service with a lot of relationship built into it.
All right, when we come back from another break, we're going to talk about the turmoil in some of the other banks around here and the competitive landscape in Rhode Island, and also the broader vision of the economy that they see from Bank Rhode Island. Stick with us on Executive Suite after the break. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and my guest from Bank Rhode Island, BankRI, you know the logo, I'm sure, is President and CEO Mark Meiklejohn and Senior Vice President and Director of Retail Banking Steve Parente. I got the whole thing without looking down there. So I was talking about competition before we went into the break, Mark, and the big news locally that I've been following in banking is what is going to happen to Citizens Bank, because its parent, Royal Bank of Scotland, looks like it's gonna sell it off altogether, make it independent again in a few years. Not going to ask you to opine on Citizens' future, but more, how much will that affect Bank Rhode Island, that kind of turmoil in a pretty significant bank for this market?
Right. Well, I think the Citizen situation is going to play itself out probably over the next year to 18 months, and we'll see really what ends up happening there. Steve and I are both alumni of Citizens, so we have a lot of friends over there, so we obviously wish them well, and they're a terrific competitor and will continue to be so in whatever form they end up. I think people are getting used to consolidation in a continually changing landscape in the banking industry. There certainly is some uncertainty about it, but again, I just think it's something that people have unfortunately had to get used to and are finding ways to deal with that. So while it represents a change, I don't see it representing anything that hasn't really been happening already in the last 10 years or so within the market, whether it was Fleet and B of A. You can go back to Hospital Trust and Bank Boston, and then Bank Boston going to Sovereign. I am starting to date myself, and
I don't even know what he's talking about.
Yeah,
I could go back further than that too, unfortunately. So.
I remember my dad at the Bay Bank in Attleboro when I was a kid.
Sure.
How about the question of saturation more generally? This seems like a pretty competitive banking market. We have a lot of different banks going for retail customers and business investment. I mean, how do you view it right now? How competitive is it? How does it compare with other bank markets?
Well, it's extremely competitive, and I think the other factor is, particularly on the commercial banking side, is there's a limited number of new companies here in Rhode Island. There's a limited number of companies in Rhode Island. And over my banking career, I'm not sure the pie has ever really gotten much bigger. So what ends up happening is all the competitors fight for their share. So they're fighting for a piece of the market, and you can measure success in percentage points. And so I'm not sure there's been real growth. So it is super competitive. We see it both from institutions that are larger than us, but also more and more you're seeing the credit unions start to move up in scale and play where really commercial banks used to play before in that level. So it's a super competitive.
So it's a two-front war in a way.
Absolutely.
And you see the same front on the residential side. I mean, as a state, obviously, we've had some struggles with unemployment. We've seen a lot of houses go up for sale, and we haven't replenished that yet. So it's the same front there as from a competitive standpoint. We don't see the deposit component growing, especially across the consumer front or the commercial front. So it's competitive just in nature. From a saturation standpoint, I think there are some areas that are certainly saturated. However, they are typically in the highest, densest population. And as you kind of move out from there, you'll see that there's kind of limited banks. Again, the great thing is it's a small enough state where if someone's offering something that you need, you can get there and you can do your banking there and you can be serviced appropriately.
Having that density, yeah. Yep. Steve, to stick with you on that, we had a top economist from Brown University on last week predicting interest rates going to stay low probably for quite a while yet, looking at the underlying trends in the economy. Your customers, are they complaining about that? Are they happy about that? What do you hear?
All depends what they're doing. If they're borrowing money, they are not complaining. They're very happy the interest rates are as low as they are, and unfortunately for some of our more mature customers who may be saving for retirement, or their grand dream of post-retirement, it makes it a little bit more difficult. They have to find other avenues to gain that interest that they were hopeful for at one particular point. So do we have some customers upset that the interest rates are low? In certain instances they are. But again, if you're in borrowing or buying a home or financing for education or building your business or building a business, it's a good opportunity because the rates are very favorable and you can get a lot more money now based on that than you could have 10 years ago based on where the interest rates are. So I think it depends on the position you're in at that particular time.
And that's actually a good segue, Mark. I wanted to ask you, what are you hearing right now? You BankRI known for doing a lot of business investment deals, helping with financing on that. What are you hearing about how 2013 looked for your business customers and what's their outlook for 2014 in the Rhode Island market, and the New England market?
Well, I'm not an economist and I don't pretend to be one, but the fortunate thing is I get to spend a lot of time with a lot of business owners and a lot of our commercial customers. And I think generally they're optimistic about what's been happening. They have been for maybe the last 18 months or so. I think we got to a point where they couldn't reduce their expenses anymore and really needed to see some top line growth in order to start to feel good about what was happening in the economy. And I think that's happening. At least that's the feedback we're getting. The good news with that is that spurs a lot of activity in terms of capital investment, whether it's buying or expanding buildings or it's buying equipment, it's hiring employees. And those are all great signs of consumer confidence and will help to drive our economy in the right direction. I mean, I think it's probably premature to say that we're out of the woods, but I think certainly the feedback we're getting from our customers is that we're heading in the right direction. So I think that's a good thing.
Would you say the mood's improving? Would you say it's been okay for a while and it's about where it's been? You know, if you had to characterize it?
Yeah, I would say it's good to improving. It's improved definitely over the last year or two. There's no question about that.
And then I also was curious about what you think, when you talk to these business people, are there things you hear consistently that Rhode Island could do to improve? I mean, I've covered so many hearings in the last couple of years about economic development and improving the economy around. Are there things that come up to you think that's actually some low-hanging fruit? Maybe the state could spur some more investments, more job growth?
Sure. Well, I think generally people are frustrated with the political climate. I think that there's a feeling that there's not a lot of cooperation, and I think to the extent that the executive branch and the legislature could start to work together and present a united front, I think that would do a lot to making people feel better about the direction that the state is heading. I mean, this is a great place to live. I'm a lifelong resident. I wouldn't dream of living anywhere else, and I've spent my entire career here. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I think they just want to see some light at the end of the tunnel. They want something to grab onto, to feel like the economy is moving forward and that the state is doing something to help that happen. So we'll see what happens.
Starting at the top there,
starting at the top.
And
sure.
Steve, only about a minute left, but we're getting into the holiday season. People think about charities. I know BankRI, you spent a lot of time helping community groups and others. How do you sort of decide who to help, and what are the big focuses for you?
Well, we try and help as many people as we can, whether it's through our charitable foundation or it's through just some, local stuff at all the branch level and our commercial groups. Almost every one of our employees are involved in volunteering for something. Obviously, this time of year, a lot of it is about whether it's youth and families, it's adopting a family, it's supplying whether it be Thanksgiving dinner or waste for help our homeless shelters, keep people warm. Right now, we're getting ready in about 2 weeks, I believe, for 2 or 3 weeks, to kick off our annual coat drive. So in all of our branches, there'll be really big bins where you can come in and drop off, slightly used coats or new coats and hats and socks and gloves for all ages, adults down to infants. And we do that every year. We've been very successful in doing it. We just came off of our summer food drive that we do with the Rhode Island Community Food Bank. So we try and find ways, and we do days of service. I
got to cut you off there because, but it's good. I can tell you care about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So bring your coats to your Bank Rhode Island branch. I want to thank Mark Meiklejohn and Steve Parente for being with me this week, and thank you, the viewers, for tuning in. Come back next week for Executive Suite.